Alright, what's up everybody? It is Zombies here again, and today we are back with the Fighting Pit. We are up to episode 7 already. Can't even believe that. Time's just flown on by, and we have some exciting new Mercenaries news today to share with you. So today, as of recording this is the 20th, so the patch notes just dropped today, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about. So, as always, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mullahoo and Tangster. How you guys doing today?
Fabulous. I'm fabulous. I mean, this is the most exciting Mercs news we've had in literally maybe ever, arguably ever, but since launch, right? But then since a month at least of just a desert. So I'm thirsty.
Yeah. And what a cool, refreshing drink we got today. I've been saying from episode 1, man, I can't wait for more dragons. And what did they give me? More dragons.
1.5 dragons.
Oh, 1.5 dragons.
That's all we needed, though, which is crazy.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting, and we're going to talk about those very exciting new mercenaries in just a minute here, but we also have other stuff to talk about. It wasn't just new mercs that got announced here. So we're going to start with some of the news. So we got some news on an update that we've kind of known a little bit about for a while. The training grounds, previously known as, I guess, the training hall, coming to Mercenaries. Now, this is more going to be a feature where you can just kind of put your mercenaries away when they're, lower level to get them up to that 30 max. So this might not be as useful of a tool for people like us who are super engaged with grinding out the mode and have a lot of stuff maxed for PvP. I think it's a good tool to kind of help people out who are new to the game or maybe have a few things in Mercs but don't have too many level 30 characters. So we do know that you do need to, it is an addition to your tavern site thing. So you pay 100 gold to create it, you get a slot with that, and if you want to upgrade it and get a second slot, it's 200 more gold, so 300 gold to max it out. What do you guys think about this?
I for one am hyped. Despite the fact that I've got all current mercs at 30, this is not just for me, right? And so this is some of the accessibility problem we were talking about. I'm a little salty that it's locked behind a gold sink, but we kind of expected that, right? So it sucks, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. It's better than we were last month. How about that? And every step forward is a good step.
Yeah, I have a bunch of things. Honestly, because I was literally writing, we were talking about it on stream today, and then I actually wrote an article with a good amount of my thoughts on it for esports. But one of the first things that just came to mind now is, honestly, when you think about it, I think this change is really made for the exact niche of player that is not new but not experienced, and that feels like a niche that doesn't exist right now, because it feels like everybody that's kind of really locked into the game is just way on the other side of the spectrum of entrenched player, maxed several mercs very quickly. But the problem is that the new player should be sending their gold on packs, right? And as soon as you break over that break point of, I would say, in my mind, it's somewhere around probably 100 packs. So what is that?
Little
10,000 gold or something like that.
Yeah,
but depending on whatever you spend, around that point is when you then plummet of the EV for what your gold is worth when it comes to packs. And so then I think you start upgrading these things, and then I think it feels good. The other funny thing is that this is kind of the closest to an optional upgrade, I would say, that we've had so far, where the campfire was kind of the closest one, but it became very clear that just having as many tasks as possible. Once air elemental went away, the task board was just good value. And at the end of the day, that's my response to this, is that even if this saves you, even if it takes you 4 hours or something, or 4 to 8 hours to level up a merc from 1 to 30, if you just turbo grind them, if you spend 100 gold to save at least 4 hours, or then many more hours than that in some cases, I think it's probably worth it. So like you said, I personally have mercs that I haven't leveled up. I'll toss them into the hole. I'll spend 100 gold. That's okay. And I'll see that as a plus EV thing for me. So I think I'm fine with it.
And when you look at how you accrue experience in the battle pass, right? If you're someone who's playing literally any other mode, because Mercenaries is easily the slowest mode to do our daily quest, which is fine, but you're still getting gold at a really quick rate, and once you hit that level 100 on the battle pass, it's more or less 50 gold a day, right? Just from your daily, and then it's augmented by the weekly quests. So skip a day of buying a pack and unlock this, and I cannot see a scenario where you regret it. But to your point, Mullahoo, that's a really good point. It's for those folks in the center, right? The folks that started out when the mode launched and kind of lost interest over our desert of with no updates. And I was talking to some folks in the Discord who were complaining the other day that like, oh, really excited to see what's new, but I don't know if I can come back. I'm so far behind now. And so this is a really good way to boost those people towards the end goal, which, let's all remember, is not a fully maxed collection or even 6 maxed mercs, but a viable PvP comp for most of the listeners, I think, that would tune into a show like this.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's I think there's a subset of players out there, who do like trying out different modes in Hearthstone, right? Like, especially when the meta gets kind of bad, like it is right now in Standard and Wild and stuff. So it's a great excuse to try other stuff. And, we've seen people do arenas. Tangster became a duels main. So it's totally understandable to want to do that. And I think there are probably a fair amount of people out there who were excited about Mercenaries and maybe even bought into it on launch or with some of the pre-orders, and then they just got burnt out or lost interest really quickly for a whole variety of reasons. And I think this is kind of it's a little helpful. Like, I was talking to someone I know who opened a fair amount of Mercenaries packs. They had some of the good Mercenaries, but their Diablo was level 10, and they only had like 5 or 6 guys about max level, and that's about where they stopped. So for them, and they play a ton of Hearthstone, so for them this is like a net win, because if they want to get back into Mercenaries eventually, it's an easy way to start, because all you're doing is you're paying that 100 gold, you're throwing them in there, and then you're forgetting about it while you go play Constructed or Arena or Duels or whatever you want to go play. So that's a net positive, and I think it's also just a positive for people who like playing different modes. Like, I'm excited about a lot of the other upcoming changes, because I want to play some more Wild again, and I think it's going to be a lot better now. So for me, maybe I want to play some Wild, but also I want to get the new Mercs all leveled up, because I want to make some videos with them, try out new comps. Well, I can just throw them in the bin there, and it'll be doing that while I'm playing Standard or whatever other mode. So I think that's a really underrated aspect of this, especially for people who are like nowhere near leveling all their mercs, because we have like 60 mercs. With this new edition, it's going to be 65. There's a lot of characters.
That is a lot to choose from. And it's going to be interesting. I think the efficacy of this edition is really going to depend on how quickly you can get them up. Because if it takes me 24 hours to get them to max, that is amazing. Where if it takes me a week, I'm going to be less enthused. So for you all listeners, I'm going to do you a favor. When the patch drops, I'm going to toss one of my new mercs directly into the training ground, and when we record 48 hours later, I will give you the update on how much that merc has leveled, so you can get an idea of whether or not it's worth it, if you're tied on gold, to spend that 100 gold up front. If you can't wait 2 days, I don't blame you either, but it's also a little bit for me, because I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I don't even know. Is there a too slow that you don't open it?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a too slow.
I think a week is probably a cap for, like, anything more than a week is ludicrous. That's just like not a number that exists on like any esports scale. No. So I think it's probably less than a week, but like even less than a week. I mean, now
Yeah.
what's funny is that actually the longer that it takes, obviously, right, the more incentivized you are to open the second slot. So they probably actually kind of have it kind of slow. So because now it's like, oh, it's that slow. Oh, well, now I just have to buy 2 slots because I might as well try to get it. Might as well try to pretend that it's only 1 slot that's fast. So if you can do 2 Mercs a week, because I mean everyone's just gonna slam your new, like you're gonna open your new Mercs. You're going to start doing tasks for like 1 of them or something probably, and then throw another one just in the hole, or maybe 2. And even if this expansion or like little expansion pack, even if the training grounds are only used for like when the new Mercs come out, even that's worth it alone. Like even if you're fully caught up now, everyone's going to have to catch up again. And so I don't know. I think I would be very surprised if it's longer than a week though. That would be crazy.
I think I would too.
Yeah, I definitely would imagine it'd be more in that like 1 to 2 day range from like low to 30, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I think it's good for those reasons that we were talking about. It's just a nice little quality of life feature. Again, definitely stress that I think eventually, whenever they can, revert the thing so we're not using gold. Give Mercenaries its own little currency. Give it like gold, but make it silver, right? Like just give it its own
Literal
little currency.
silver.
Because the value of gold, it gets really tricky if you're also trying to play something like standard and you have cards you need to finish for your collection. Mercenaries pack value falls off really fast the more you have completed in the mode. It's fine when you're starting out and you don't have any characters leveled up or fully maxed out, but the closer or the further you get in progressing, the worse the pack value becomes. So until there's some kind of change with that, I think it's even more reason eventually. It'd be awesome if we got our own currency in Mercs. But
is that the coin? Is that the extra coin solution as well? Could be.
Oh.
Could be.
Now we're talking.
That's actually, I was gonna say, like real quick, my last like moment of like hopium about the training grounds is actually like the fact that it's almost maybe a little uninspiring of a change. If anything, gives me more hope to the fact that a very discrete, different answer is being worked on for the bonus and extra coins that people have, because this seems like such a clear way to have addressed that problem, and to not, to me, says slam your mic in anger and be excited about the fact that it's probably meaning that there is like a very separate change that will hopefully just solve all our problems and make Mercenaries heaven just suddenly appear over the horizon there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think I'm still on the hopium of Paul mentioned had something cool he was working on. They wanted to try and make sure it got in the 22.4 patch if he could, and that is the patch after the one we're getting next week. So next week's 22.2. The one after that big patch will be 22.4. That'll probably be the mini set, I'd imagine, sometime in February, but it's a long ways out compared to
next
week, so don't have
so
to
at least
think.
probably 2 weeks after next week at least
for sure,
for those that are wondering. Which also presumably we're not getting any balance changes as well, which also kind of means, I mean, they could hit us with some at the very end, but I would be surprised if this patch has balance changes in it that weren't announced with this. So Valera is untouched, so you are either going to get super rewarded or about to get snowballed into the dirt.
Well, let's talk about this is funny because it feels like a balance change, but it is actually a bug fix. And there's one for those of you who didn't bother to comb through the long list of bugs that were fixed across all of the modes. We did it for you, and there's really only one interesting one, and that has to do with Brucon and his Chain Lightning. Today, if you cast Chain Lightning, it will bounce regardless of how much health you have. So if you put your 1 health Jaina in the middle, she's going to get hit twice by Chain Lightning no matter what, and be at negative 40 whatever. Apparently that's a bug. Chain Lightning is supposed to skip over Mercs that are, quote, functionally dead. Where is it? I'll read it directly so I don't screw this up. Fixed a bug where Brucon's Chain Lightning would overkill targets that were already dealt lethal damage. Now it will skip targets that are already functionally dead. That feels like a huge buff.
I don't think I realized that it said skip specifically. That to me screams that it will no longer, that this is straight buff, because we were saying that like maybe there's a world where it was actually kind of if it would just stop, right? If it would say like, oh, this Merc in my way is dead, there's nowhere else to bounce to. The bonus chain, and this is also a chain lightning that with the lightning rod equipment, so it has the extra bounces. It's not just regular Brucon, but everyone basically plays with super chain lightning Brucon. But yeah, so this seems like just a straight up buff that now Brucon is better. Brucon was already great, and now Brucon's better.
Brucon is incredible, and I'm actually looking at the HSReplay tier list for casters, and oh, that's interesting. He's when I looked at it before the show, I had him up at tier 1. Mm-hmm. Sky Admiral Rogers is number 1, tier 1, which is interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to dig into that a little bit later. But yeah, Brucon, easily top 5 most powerful casters in the format right now. I will be very surprised if this does not shoot him to number 1, because, and you know, we'll talk about this in a minute, but we didn't get any casters in the drop either.
Not a 1.
Which is literally unbelievable to me. I would have lost a lot of money.
I would have lost so much money. I would have bet on at least 1. But when you look at, you know, the casters that we have, there aren't really any comps right now running less than 2 casters, which you pretty commonly see that being the case with fighters and protectors, where you can very easily run only one of those roles in a comp, and not it doesn't feel too bad. Yeah, where definitely not the case with casters.
No, it's really interesting, you know, especially when you consider. Remember at launch, Mercenaries was like super caster dominated. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still very successful.
And Conjure was just broken. You had to kill all these casters somehow.
Then, I mean, that's a big part of why Samura was so good, right? Like the premier fighter just to stomp down all these insane casters. So, and like you were mentioning the stats, like the most popular caster, unsurprisingly, right above Brucon, Cookie, right? Because they go together hand in hand with that nature. Nature backline is probably one of the, I mean, it's not even probably, it is one of the best backlines in the game right now. It's like that or CDC for like 90% of comps, and we're getting basically a buff in the form of a fix. That's very surprising to me.
And what's nuts to me is I don't want to get us too, like, we could do a whole episode talking about the stats that we're able to see now on HSReplay. It's an incredible tool. I really encourage everyone to take a look. You know, subscribe for a month. That's what I did just to try it out, and it's really interesting to see the things that I assumed versus which ones are true. Brucon is the second most popular and the also the second most versatile, where a versatility metric is how many distinct parties does this Merc belong in, which is once again second only to Cookie, who is got a incredibly,
it's a blowout. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's not even
just in every column.
He's an outlier. Any statistician looks at him and goes, "This is an outlier." Anyway. Yes, a buff to arguably the second best caster in the format.
Sneaky. I like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this, but it definitely, you know, if anything, it's telling us nature isn't going anywhere anytime soon. That is for sure. But, you know, maybe we have some new tools to fight with it now, since we're getting so many fighters. A little segue there. I do want to mention before we jump into the new Mercs, though, that the My Collection part of the HSReplay Merc stuff is totally free, apparently. I didn't know that. So if you do want
I didn't either.
Yeah, if you do want just a way to track your collection and progress of Mercenaries, you don't need to be subscribed. You can just go onto the Mercenaries tab, and once you're signed in, it's in the top right, and you can just sync up with the deck tracker, and it'll track all your stuff. So I was really looking for something like this, because I like seeing visually my progress on stuff, and it's nice. You know, it lets you sort through your mercenaries. You can see exactly where you are in progression, so you can kind of decide what you want to focus through. I find it a lot more intuitive than browsing the collection and whatnot. So it's a cool tool. Definitely recommend using it, even if it's just for that. But the data is really awesome too. So definitely happy with that.
The only thing I do not recommend, Zombies, is as you're browsing through it, enjoying your collection, seeing all the cool things you have, do not sort by coins. Whatever you do, don't do that. It is very depressing how many coins I have for some of these mercs.
Oh God, I didn't even know you could do that. That shows you how much I've tried.
And I'm sorry that I told you that, because now you're gonna well,
I just did
a direct slash played from WoW.
Yeah,
it's exactly it. Which
what's your record, Tangster? If you
I actually have Brucon up at almost 7,000. He is at 6,980 coins for Brucon.
Nice.
What about you?
All right, Rokara 9,808.
Holy shit!
That's ludicrous.
I've seen.
What about you, Mullahoo?
Oh,
God, I don't even know. I don't even have it open. It's probably.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually am almost positive it's Brucon.
Yeah. From Earth Elemental or Air Elemental.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just guy definitely was farming that for a good amount, and then like when I was actually wanting to play Brucon, it was definitely
for sure getting it maxed up
a
early.
lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to find it in a second.
Yeah, they're all from the Air Elemental.
Not that much though.
It's a lot. I really hope the extra coins fix is good, because if I could use these coins in any way to help progress new mercenaries, I would be really happy. It would save a lot of
almost
grind. Anyway, like
literally
anything.
almost anything.
We've been doom and gloom for the last couple of weeks around the coins. Let's talk about some cool stuff, you guys.
We got some cool new mercenaries.
Yeah. Should we dive into that?
Let's
I think
do
so.
it.
Speaking of casters, Balinda Stonehearth, not a caster.
Not a caster.
Really surprised.
I would have lost a lot of money on that.
Blows my mind.
That one in particular. Yeah.
Straight up, they would have shown me the patch notes or they would have shown me whatever not the actual patch notes, right? But there was some quote unquote information that was released before the patch came out that said that Balinda was a fighter. The bookie that would have shown me that it said she's gonna be a fighter, and I would have looked him in the mouth and said that's not right, and I would have lost it all. So I'm glad, but I mean, we do have some kind of a precedent for people where like some of the mercs had slightly altered colors and other information that we'd seen once upon a time. But the fact that Balinda is a straight up mage card in standard, a multi spell type caster, like so explicitly, really surprises me that they made her a fighter, especially when, like we said, no casters in this launch. Not a single caster. 4 fighters, 1 protector, and the last legendary merc from the last set, Valera, fighter. The last merc before that was legendary, Edwin, fighter. It truly actually blows my mind that they went legendary fighter in a row. I would have bet the house that wouldn't have been that wouldn't have been the case, but here we are, and now we have a brand new fighter that locks perfectly into, and maybe this is why, right, these caster dominated archetypes of frost damage and fire damage.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's run down those abilities. Zombies, you want to take Balinda, or you want me to do it?
I'll start off with Balinda. We can keep going through it. So Balinda Stonehearth. That's a clever last name there. Human. She is a fighter. I believe these are max stats here. So 10, 73, 10 attack, 73 health. Her abilities, we have Flame Dart. Deal 10 damage to a character. Give them +3 frost weakness. And this is a fire skill with 3 speed. No cooldown. So that's neat. And then we see Frost Dart to kind of go with it. 4 speed. Deal 12 damage. Give them +3 fire weakness, and that's a frost spell. So we see the fire and frost duo support there, kind of supports itself and other units. And then to go with those, we have Frost Burn, deal 11 damage to all enemies, and gain either +3 frost damage or +3 fire damage. We do know this is actually like the Malfurion skill. So you can actually choose which you want. It's not random or anything. You get a little UI thing. You get a pick. So that's really nice. Kind of goes with the theme, but it is not any kind of spell school there, so not fire or frost. And then we have her equipment. So she's all about summoning the elementals, if you couldn't tell from the artwork. First one is Lesser Fire Elemental. Battlecry, summon a 10/15 elemental that applies +3 fire weakness to characters it damages. We have Lesser Water Elemental. Summon a 10/15 elemental that freezes characters it damages. And then last but not least, Stormpike's Salvation. It's a passive. At the end of each turn, give all your characters +5 health. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Man, where do we start?
Yeah, this
like,
is
for me, the first thing that hit me about this character is this may be one of the first mercs we have where all of the equipment looks equally awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I can very easily already think of comps that want to run one of those elementals, and the Stormpike's Salvation, the plus health at the end of your turn, that's just scuffed cookies, appetizers. That's like, you keep her alive for 2 turns, and you're now beating Cookie's health buff. That's insane.
Do we know yet? Do we have any kind of confirmation whether or not friendly characters actually checks your bench or not?
probably not. I don't think
It says all your characters.
It
not
is. We were talking about this a little bit on stream. The precedent from Cookie is just, it's a start of game from Cookie, but Cookie technically says characters. I think Cookie says friendly characters, and Balinda says
just characters.
Just all
But
your
all.
characters.
Yep.
It's I honestly, this is where, like, coming from like Magic, you would have a like direct precedent that would let you understand how to interpret it. But in this case, all characters might check like what is in play, and so it buffs the summons that you have. Or all characters is all of your characters. If it is truly across your entire bench at all times, this Balinda
that's
is
insane.
absolutely so insane.
Wrapped. And for
I
that
don't know.
reason alone, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
And to be clear, these equipments are not all equally powerful if what Mullahoo is saying is the case.
Yeah.
One becomes very clearly a winner, but you really get to decide, okay, what do we need here? Do we need something to freeze, right? Do we need the water elemental to help counter some melee? Do we want the fire elemental for some extra damage? Or do we just want free health every turn? And that's a hard choice depending on how you're building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the most distinct, like, a really good example of, all right, she has 3 different specs, right? She has fire spec, frost spec, and then like her Alterac Valley raid boss spec. They're all kind of flavorfully very different. They're all very unique. They're all relatively equally powerful, and they all go into different comps that you kind of decide, and it decides for you. It's really a very well-designed Merc all around. All of her abilities are great and very equally balanced. She scales with herself, maybe. She scales with other people well. Human typing, funky fighter. Honestly, I would say this is my favorite of the legendary Mercs that have been released in that sense. Only because Valero was just like so obviously like these numbers aren't okay, but this really is just like a home run for me, honestly.
Yeah, definitely second that. As someone who has tried belligerently at times to make fire comp work, this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
especially after like trying humans recently. Humans really want some good green units. And while this obviously doesn't have a ton of like direct synergy with humans, you could probably do some pretty cool stuff with the health buff, or even just getting that big elemental off the start. You don't need a full theme comp where you could just get one fire or one frost. I mean, you could have Jaina and humans, right? And then you get some frost synergy with this. So it's really interesting. I think definitely agree. It's kind of a home run. It's not a character I expected to get, and I'm also a big fan of the art. I think the art looks just fantastic.
It looks incredible.
Like, for all the
Sweet
characters, they really knocked some of these portraits out of the park. They're really, really good looking. So I think Belinda's definitely going to see a bunch of play. I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation with her because you can just run her in so much different stuff, especially with some of the other mercenaries that we're going to get to here. But it's like there's just so many options with her. It feels like she's very far from being like a one-trick mercenary. It's not going to be straightforward playing Balinda. I think you have a lot more intricate choices to make to stack damage for the next turn or other abilities, and I think it's good to see like some depth there rather than this one skill is the best skill, the other two aren't that great, I use this skill. Like Grom is kind of like a one button Merc, right? I mean his plus attack and swing in is good too, but his third ability, I don't know if I've ever seen it used in PvP. Not once.
Really?
Yeah,
I've
one. Where like double strikes. Oh, the death blow one or whatever.
The death blow.
No,
yeah,
that's
death blow. Okay, yeah. That one's tough to use.
That's the first skill.
Oh, first one. Yeah, my bad. Ordering.
The third one, was where he attacks both.
Yeah, no, that one's great. Those
Yeah.
two are good. Obviously, Slam's the best, but no, the first skill then, that one is just I've never seen it used in PvP because it's just so much worse than the others, and the others don't have cooldown, right? So the only skill on Balinda with cooldown is Frostburn, which I think makes sense, and it's only one cooldown, so it's really not that bad. But the speeds are good, and what could be a little scary is, we do have a 3-speed ability here, so Valeera combo enabler. That's...
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to find out really quickly as we start to go through these new Mercs that Valeera's not going to be looking nearly as good after the patch, I think we're about to find out exactly why she didn't get any nerfs in this Merc drop.
Yeah. Actually, one final note that I just realized, too, about Balinda, because I was talking about it in terms of being like another cool way to interact with Valeera because you have another summon that Valeera has to attack.
Yeah.
It is kind of unlucky, and I didn't really realize this before, that the elementals exactly die to Staggering Slam from Grom, unlike Muklah's big brother, which is a 24 health. So you don't actually block Valeera. You still block Grom, or you force them to play someone that can do 15 on turn 1. So like it has to be kind of be Grom and etc. And that's still fine, yada yada. But
yeah, it still messes them up.
It isn't. It is no Muklah's big brother
insane.
In that sense. So it's not as good, but it has obviously better. Like the taunt from Muklah's big brother was really kind of medium, and now you have relevant like +3 fire weakness or freeze. Not bad.
Well, I will say that the Merc I'm most excited to run Balinda with may solve that problem, but we'll leave that till we get to the end because he's all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, you want to take the next one, Tangster?
Yeah, sure. I'm really pumped about this. So, Captain Galvangar is a orc fighter. Max stats are 1171. He is an epic. And his first ability is Rend and Cleave. 5-speed, attack an enemy. If it has not acted this turn, apply bleed 8 to it and adjacent enemies. Skill 2, Fatal Strike. 3-speed, deal 8 damage to an enemy. It can't heal for 2 turns. And Frightening Shout, speed 6, cooldown 1. Deal 10 damage to all enemies. If they have acted, the ability they cast gains +3 cooldown. And I'm just going to go to equipment because otherwise I'm going to start talking and not stop. So we got 3 equipments. The first equip, Fury of the Frostwolf, passive. Friendly characters have +5 attack. Drekthar's Boon, Fatal Strike, the skill 2, which prevents healing, also applies a bleed 5. And Deafening Howl, Frightening Shout, the skill 3, deals 5 more damage, making it 15. I don't know where to start. So, Mullahoo, what are you thinking about Captain Galvangar?
Yeah, I mean, my first instinct was honestly jumping to the orc, right? And I was like, I know that orcs were kind of sticking up a lot more, putting up a lot more results. People kind of realizing that Sourfang is actually still pretty good. Thrall still pretty good. Grom might not even need to be in there. Rakara's got a buff in that last kind of tweak that we actually saw the balance change and things. So I've been a fan of... I still don't like Gul'dan. I still wish that there was a way to solve Gul'dan as part of that comp, because I honestly love every other... I love Garrosh. I think that they were a standout Merc to me from the very first tournament. So I honestly think that Orcs has yet another sweet Merc to interact with, and I love a lot of their abilities. So I like jamming them into most likely just a better orc comp, but that's nothing crazy. But plus another 5 attack on all your friendly characters. I mean, for a comp that was already trying to stack stats, this is basically an offensive cookie in that sense. And it has just, when you just want to make the numbers get bigger, right? The pure WoW dream. He seems to go right into that quite well with another good AoE, a good anti-heal, a good bleed, a great kit, and good type, reasonable health, fine attack. All around, just like decent, great. Again, like I honestly barely have any complaints with it, which is insane that we go through 2 entire Mercs and everything top to bottom about the Merc is great.
Yeah. No, it was very, this is the one that took me by surprise. I did not expect an orc in this drop. Yeah, I'm happy to see it because I like orcs. I've tried a few different ones, and orcs are really fun and can be really strong. There's something incredibly satisfying about punching into a full health cookie off of the bench and just instantly killing it with Garrosh or Rakara. It's just disgusting. It's really good. They already had a lot of good greens, so I think it is going to be a little tricky to figure out where this goes, but orcs have never had a problem, subbing out other ones to try new things. So maybe it just ends up going very green heavy. That might not really be a bad thing, especially with the prevalence of all these nature backlines, double blue benches.
Varden.
Yeah, I definitely expect a lot more Jaina with these new mercenaries giving some frost and human support. So I think it makes a lot of sense having a good fighter around. And I really like, they just have a bunch of very distinct abilities. Like, Fatal Strike is nuts. It's like not a ton of damage, but it's fair amount of damage, but it's super nuts. Fast, no cooldown, denies healing for 2 turns. That's crazy.
That's insane. How do you, you want to stop Mayhem, you want to stop Malfurion, but suddenly you've got an answer, and not only that, but he's already packing a bleed, so he's got synergy with himself in his own kit, which it always ends well, and I kind of want to call out his stats because I think they're really well balanced because 11 attack at max is the 3rd highest attack for fighters, and you have most fighters that are kind of like the melee fighters with 11 attack. You have Tyrion at 13, you have Diablo and King Crush at 12, and then a whole laundry list of greens at 11. 71, though, is kind of squishy for a fighter who wants to be swinging in. And so I think that is a good thing, right? Because otherwise we just talked about how big the numbers get quickly with orcs anyway. And so if you have him higher, even like a 76 where Samuro is, he gets out of hand really, really quickly. And so I think we're going to find that he's going to be really powerful, but not in a way that makes him feel unkillable, which I appreciate. And especially, it goes with the kind of the theme of Captain Galvangar. He feels kind of a polar opposite to Balinda Stonehearth, and at the same time, the Alliance always killed him much quicker. So I'm just saying that.
Just color dip. Faction diff. I don't know what to say.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. You pointed out the stats on it. That really gives you some perspective on how busted Valeera is with 13 attack at max. And I don't even... It wouldn't even be that bad if she didn't get a free +10 attack. Like, I know, I think Sign of Times has talked about that a bunch, and I agree with him. I think that is the most, the speed stuff enables some problematic things, but Valeera would be way less problematic if she didn't just murder things so quickly at light speed. But we'll save that for future Valeera rants. It's just something that, looking at the stats made me think about. But speaking of Valeera, we do have a skill here that can kind of act as a bit of a counter to some of these super fast comps running around. So Frightening Shout, dealing that damage all the enemies. If they've acted the ability, they cast gains +3 cooldown. Now, something that's kind of interesting about this is that does not specify a amount of time. Is that just that could be a permanent +3 slow, which I think three's a lot. Like that almost entirely
3 is infinity.
So I
negates Valeera.
will say that I am tempted to say I don't think that's the case, and it's because I'm remembering Sky Admiral, I believe, has a skill that does something similar, and I believe it says permanently, and I'm actually looking up the text right now because I
Interesting.
cannot remember what it says. But I think the more important thing is it even relevant? Like, if 4 turns goes by and Valeera can't use her skill
Such a
1, that
striker,
means
yeah.
she's either sitting in stealth, doing nothing, functionally dead, except for, the fact that she's giving mega speed buffs, or you have now let these mercs live long enough to come back around, and they're either successfully stalling you out, or you're losing. So, yet 3 turns is a long, long time.
Yeah, three is literally just like you take that button off of their keyboard, and they just you're not ever using that ability ever again. It's basically the Frostmourne from Lich King, but just
Oh wow.
you always apply it to everybody, but it's way better because they can literally never touch that button again. Not just
I did
slow.
not realize.
It doesn't go to 22.
Yeah,
it's
I
plus
didn't
3
realize
cooldown.
That's how that worked.
Cooldown, not speed.
I thought it was
You do not get to
speed.
click that button.
Oh, what
No.
the hell? That's insane.
No.
3 turns? What the fuck?
Yeah.
This is nuts.
Even if it was 2.
Yeah.
Even if it was 1.
3. It's just 3. That's crazy. Wow. I misunderstood this entirely. Wow. That's like...
Suddenly that sounds way more cracked.
Yeah,
because,
before I was like, oh, it's okay.
It's
all right.
Yeah, it's Frostmourne. It's frost-ranged Frostmourne. No.
Mini AoE
no.
Frostmourne. Well, Frostmourne AoE, I guess. Psst. That's crazy. No. That's...
It's sick. And it's a really cool version of Disruption that I think is... I would love to see more of these types of effects printed in the, like, linear... but especially in the, like, linear... aggro deck, essentially.
Yep.
Like it starts to get nasty. I mean, it's kind of again bringing it back to Magic for people that know Magic in that sense, where it's like blue has these effects that like really mess you up and like get obnoxious and annoying, and they just have this disruption. That in itself is fine when it's coupled with like low power level mechanics. It gets stupid when you have the disruption with insane support, and orcs are a really good example of a tribe that should be allowed to have like funky, like aggressive, just like pound you into the dirt disruption that is actually only kind of for them, doesn't bleed out too much. And if you want to take Galvangar and play him just for that ability, again, great, do it. This is why I love the design of so many of these mercs, just like Balinda, where it's like, do you play her by herself to scale by herself? Do you play it with her synergies? Do you play it as just like this weird kind of like bait with her other equipment? Again, Galvangar very similarly can go well into orcs and as well with other stuff because his kit is so well designed. So it's great. It's great.
Yeah. I was looking for and I was wrong. It wasn't Sky Admiral who had a similar ability. I don't know who I'm thinking of, but I think
it's Vanessa. I think it's
her
third ability.
I think you're right.
Maybe it was.
I'll check that in a minute. But so this ability has 1 cooldown, and the reason I don't think it's going to permanently give 3 cooldown is because then you enter a scenario where it is possible to have all 3 of your enemy mercs have all 3 of their skills on cooldown, right? So that does not feel. We were talking about the stealth interaction right before we started recording, right? Where you cannot, you always have to have 1 merc out of stealth, which is why Valeera unstealths if you kill both of her allies. That's where my brain goes. Where okay, if it was permanent, it is 100% possible, even in a niche case. That is a feel bad mechanic if all of your stuff is on cooldown, right? You take Tyrion, right? You swing with his first skill at the 7 speed, and then maybe you get hit with this ability. You use the second skill. King's is still on cooldown. Now all 3 are on cooldown. That's fine. You have screwed up on this counterplay, but the fact that he could do that to everyone feasibly
Well, with one cooldown, can he do? Is there?
Oh my god,
I think the
that's
first one will come off,
disgusting.
right? Or like you could like mana blink and reset it and like do stuff like that and like literally just take you off. But
Yeah, I
so
guess
maybe,
Blink
okay.
Fox stonks going
Right?
up with this, I guess. Yeah.
But even things like that are also things that I would love to see more Merc synergies have. Where I kind of talked about it with the like Cornelius, Smite, Rikara. Like I want to see more combo decks like that. I want to see like no, the point of my deck is to literally like put all of your abilities on cooldown. Like if I can do my cool thing, if you can let me finagle into a position of pulling off like this really cool combo, like then you should be rewarded for it. There's actually very little of that, I would say, in Mercs right now. Like there are very few true combo decks, potentially because the disruption is so crazy, potentially because the speed is so crazy. But that's another great incentive to have like, okay, we'll be slow, but we'll be a combo deck. If you want to be fast, you're not going to be a combo deck. But if you can be slow and have things like this and have these crazy multi-turn setups, again, that's a great incentive to pull the speeds back up and make the range good. And so I think it's great. If you wanna get that highlight reel of fully setting your opponent to no cooldowns and they just watch them pass their turn, you deserve the YouTube views.
I can already hear the saxophone.
Right.
Yeah, the epic sax going. Yeah, no, this ability's just so much better than I thought it was before we started this. So I'm just a little shocked here. Like, it's just, I mean, I've been playing a little bit with Sky Admirable, and with her AoE, you know, it functions very similar, where you're rewarded damaging everything with a bunch of damage as long as they act first. So there are a lot of scenarios where it is not hard to pull that off. And it's just not only getting decent damage, especially with the equipment, make it 15 damage AoE, that's 30 damage critting. And then giving the cooldown, +3 cooldown to not just one thing, could be up to 3 mercenaries, or even, I guess, even more than that if they're like token spawns, summon spawns. That's just insane.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's really I think that's one of the most powerful abilities we've seen, and I'm excited that we're getting like Mullahoo said, this is a cool way to. We haven't seen an interaction like this that messes with the cooldown before, unless I'm mistaken. This is like
Vanessa.
Not in like actual
not
play,
in
right?
actual play.
Vanessa adds a cooldown to an ability, but like like compare that literally. Vanessa can make one Merc have one ability go up by 1 cooldown. Galvangar says everyone by 3 also take 1,000,000 damage.
Yeah. I thought she worked the same way, where I misunderstood what it said. That's a very important distinction, because one cooldown is a lot more value than 1 speed, especially in the Valera meta. But wow, any last thoughts on the captain here?
Oh, so many, but we're going to run out of time, so let's keep going.
Those are good thoughts, though. Yeah, I think that ability alone just hardcore pushes Galvangar up into like super sweet mode.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm way more excited to try him now. You want to do Sinestra, Mullahoo?
Oh yeah, okay, nice. So Sinestra, we've got another. This is our full-blown dragon. So now a rare fighter, another fighter. But a rare, so you'll almost certainly open her right away. 1375 max stats. She's joining the company of super maxed attack, which is crazy. First ability, Racking Swipe. 6 speed. Attack an enemy. If you control another dragon, apply bleed 10. Huge bleed. Mana Barrier. Arcane. Speed 2, cooldown 1. So super fast, kind of like Sky Emerald. Restore 50 health to a dragon. Its next ability is 3 speed slower. Technically hilarious that you can target your opponent's dragon if they're at full. Twilight Extinction, final ability, Shadow, very relevant. Speed 5, cooldown 1. Restore 20 health to this Merc. At the end of next turn, deal 30 damage to all enemies. And then her 3 equipment are Hook Talons, Racking Swipe, her first ability, just the attack. Bleed for 10. Now it applies an additional bleed 5. So the highest bleed we've seen by an enormous margin. 15-point bleed. And she's a fighter, so this is going on to casters. And it's literally now representing a 50-point attack on turn 1 with no cooldown. Mana Brooch. Mana Barrier, the super huge dragon heal, restores 10 more health. So it now restores 60 health to a dragon and reduces damage taken by 5 this turn. So the Cornelius Task 7 equipment, pretty sick. And then her final equipment, Shard of Woe. Twilight Extinction now restores 20 more health, so now she heals 40 instead of 20. and then it deals 10 more damage. So it deals 40 damage instead of 30, but it has a +1 cooldown. So it goes up to a cooldown 2.
Whew.
Relatively funky.
Wow.
This Merc I have as kind of a super sleeper because I think, not resident sleeper, regular sleeper, of... Honestly, the first thing that I thought of was, these numbers are also just like gigantic out of nowhere, like 50, 30, 15 point bleed, 13, like her stats, again, for a rare, this is also kind of setting a new precedent of like, your rares can just have also insane stats. Like Cookie's stats weren't necessarily insane, but the kit was good. But now in this case, it's like 75 health and 13 attack is a lot for a rare. And almost kind of just showing that rarity simply means collectability, like ease of access, nothing more, which is pretty funky to think about in terms of just scaling for the future. But my first thought about this Merc is just, I'm pretty sure that she starts to 1v1 almost anybody in the late game. She's like a new Sylvanas, like Anduin kind of Merc, where if you, she just destroys Anduin in a 1v1, I think. It just between, you can cycle between heal myself for 50 and then heal myself for 20, 30 you. Heal myself for 50, heal myself for 20, 30 you. Like, that is an insane series of swings, and the 30 is a full AoE. Like, this Merc has some very funky numbers that are maybe just purely by virtue of them being gigantic numbers, but really funky dragon for the backline of the Dragon Comp, I think.
Yeah, worth noting, 2 of her abilities are cooldown 1, so you can only use Racking Swipe off if you're starting her. So definitely could see us being a little bit more of a bench Merc because of that. Get a little bit more value there. But this is just like, one, I think that's the biggest bleed we've seen yet. I mean, with the equipment, 15
Easily.
bleed, that's insane. And if you start comboing with stuff like we just saw with the last ability denying being able to be healed for 2 turns, you know that bleed is sticking. It's not going anywhere. So you could set up like a lethal on a character over 2 turns, and no matter what they do or what they have, that character's not getting healed because it's got that kind of debuff on it. I can't really believe some of these numbers for Twilight Extinction. I mean, Mana Barrier is pretty insane too. Also, Arcane and Shadow abilities. So just imagine this scenario. We have Shard of Woe on this thing, and you have Vol'jin and Natalie out, and Twilight Extinction's a shadow ability, so Vol'jin makes everything weaker to shadows AoEs, then this goes off, more shadow AoE, and then Natalie goes off. Like, I'm not going to do all the math right now, but that's like, I feel like that could kill just about almost anything.
I've got it.
Like,
actually, right here, I did the math on the side.
All right.
It is a fuck ton. That's what it says. I added up all the numbers, and I came out with fuck ton.
It's like when your calculator sells boobs upside down. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and this is a perfect example of a Merc who very clearly is meant to set up these huge turns, like the sort of thing we see with like a Cairn Diablo Blink Fox type of combos, but just cracked, right? Because you use this turn A, because you can't use it on turn 1, and then turn B, you have Vol'jin use his weakness, Natalie drop her AoE, and then this goes off at the end of the turn, and something is going to die, unless you're playing orcs, apparently, right? Because those numbers are huge too. But it is insane, and I think, yes, my instinct is bring her in off the bench, but I really want to run that bleed equip and just lead her with like an Alexstrasza or something, or a Brightwing, right? Someone who is bulky enough to take a couple of hits, so she can just stack bleeds. Because if you can land that 2 turns in a row and they don't have any healing on board, something's gonna die, and it's probably gonna be more than one thing.
Yeah, it's huge bleed. Huge bleed. Also worth noting, Arcane synergy. So not only does like Blink Fox synergize with it well for getting the cooldown lower if you are running Shard of Woe, You can also use Mana Bridge to combo Blinkvox's regular ability if you get a bad roll or an unusable skill. So that's kind of a neat little interaction there. But really, really hyped with this dragon. I think it's really cool how we got those kind of split skills there, so it can be used in a variety of ways. And I'm just happy we're getting more dragons. More dragons are a good thing. Finally, someone to go with like Alex and Voon, I guess, technically. Brightwing too, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've always considered Brightwing more of a bench buff unit like Tyrion than I think of a dragon. Because every time I see Brightwing, that's like the main feature, but maybe there's some interesting synergy that can be done there too.
Yeah.
Dragon Arcane comp when?
I've got a
Brightwing's
my
arcane, right?
one Brightwing comp.
Oh, yeah.
Nature, I think.
I thought she had a. Oh no,
No,
you know
she's
what?
nature.
You're
her pick herself up might be nature, but
dead on arrival.
I think it's nature. Yeah.
I
still
the dream.
my brief. So I'll even because of the RIP, I'll share my like quick theory craft for her because my favorite Sinestra build that I kind of had, which also has Wrathion in it, is Wrathion, Alex, Brightwing, and then Sinestra, Voon, Garrosh on the bench. I think that's just like a ton of juice, and you start having you have
cool.
Brightwing that can stack Sinestra and Garrosh. All the dragons are in one comp, so that's a brief Sinestra theory craft. If anyone's trying to get their Brightwing comps going, get your maxed Voon finally out there. That could be who knows? That can be a comp that's worth trying, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. But speaking of Wrathion, we'll go over him now.
Yeah.
So this is a really cool mercenary because he kind of does something we haven't seen before. So Wrathion, 12 attack, 73 health. He is a fighter. A lot of fighters here. An epic human. So that's a little strange, right? We know Wrathion's a dragon. Well, looking at the abilities here, we have Creeping Madness, 8 speed, Fell skill, attack an enemy. Next turn, they must use a different ability or take 20 damage. Then we have Tail Swipe, deal 20 damage randomly to the left or rightmost enemy, 6 speed, Shadow, and then last but certainly not least here, True Form. So 2 cooldown, 3 speed, become a dragon, gain +0 health, increased by damage dealt by this Merc, and transforms into Fell Rain 5. So we'll look at that in a minute, but we're going to go through his equipment here. Chimera of Fear, so Creeping Madness also makes the enemy 4 speeds slower. Then Black Dragon Scales, Tail Swipe also applies Bleed 5. And then Horn of Wrathion, True Form has no cooldown and also grants +6 attack. So looking at True Form here, basically True Form actually transforms this mercenary's type, and then the third ability is also transformed. So he transforms it from a human into a dragon, and his new ability 3 is Fell Rain 5. It's an 8 speed Fell spell. Deal 3 damage to all enemies. Repeat 4 times. It has 1 cooldown, and it starts off of cooldown. So there's a lot to unpack in this one, but finally some Fell support. So maybe we can make Jaraxxus great, right?
I mean, this is perfectly tailor-made for Jaraxxus. Like, it literally says, like, repeat this. If you have any bonus Fell damage, this is made for bonus spell damage. Anything that repeats desperately wants it, as we'll see with our final Merc tonight, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy because, and again, just easily the coolest Mercs drop we have gotten so far because of all of the cool new mechanics we're seeing, and True Form I think we actually talked about is the sort of thing we were hoping to see for dragons in particular. I think we'd actually talked about it for Deathwing, and canonically Wrathion, son of Deathwing, Sinestra, consort to Deathwing. Where's
Deathwing next?
Where's our Cataclysm? But I really like True Form because there are 2 ways that I think about this, right? The first is obvious. You use one of the other equips and you take him off the bench like you do Brucon today, right? When his True Form is ready to pop. But second idea, Still no true form equipment. Lead him. Let him eat a whole bunch of damage, because if the way I read this is you're going to essentially heal that damage back, right? And I don't know what the damage to health conversion is, but
Well, it's
we
damage
don't have
dealt by this Merc, not damage taken. So I'm pretty sure it's just 1-to-1.
Even better then,
Yeah.
because then you can start stacking damage. You can do some crazy things, and
That'd be really cool.
Maybe it synergizes with the bleed, right? If the bleed damage comes from Wrathion, that counts, and now we're just stacking bleeds, and all of a sudden you can use what is essentially an ultimate, right? And go true form. You're getting an absolute shit ton of health back, and now you are a dragon, enabling all of that great dragon synergy. And finally, we could just run the damn horn on him. True form has no cooldown, and play him either in the front line or off the bench, and decide, we do have enough damage done. Let's get big.
Yeah.
And just go Super Saiyan.
It's
a cool Merc.
Super cool. This is I think this is my favorite design of anything they've done yet. I was really hoping we'd get some kind of, I mean, it was kind of there, right? Like the idea was there with things like Anathema and Benediction, right? Where that feels like a pseudo transformation, swapping the ability, but the fact that we actually get a tribe change is so cool, because you could probably do some kind of weird shenanigans where you could start like human lead with human synergies, and then once one of your humans dies, you could have dragon backline, and then you transform him into the dragon, and then you have more synergy there, and it's just like,
oh, that's hot.
It's cool.
That's
like
cool.
There's so many. I really wanted and was hoping that there'd be some kind of dual type in Mercenaries eventually. I didn't think we'd get anything like that so soon, but I think this is kind of a step in that direction, where it's like, it's not just for one tribe of units. It can do things in both, which is really cool.
And more than two, like Fell is basically demon at that point, right? I might have been taking the words out of your mouth, but I mean, like, another Merc that goes into like 6 different decks without even thinking.
Yep. No, I was actually going to go a little bit of a different direction, because I have a very important question that is not obvious from the information we were given. Do I now unpack 2 portraits for every one with Wrathion, or is there only one dragon portrait? This is the information I need, fellas.
That's true.
You know, if I'm gonna have those portraits, is it all? Because we do have with the patch notes a screenshot of what one of the dragon form looks like.
It's pretty sweet.
But he's got 3 portraits. It looks great. I would not be upset if it was the only one. I just think it would be extra spicy if each portrait also had like a dragon form, that it was, kind of like how druids and WoW, like if you're a Tauren, your bear form looks a little different than the night elves and stuff like that. So
that would be cool.
I like dressing up my Mercs. What can I say?
Yeah, no, it's I'm still salty. I haven't gotten a Roger's skin yet. She's like, I'm missing 2. I wanted one skin for everybody. I'm missing her, and I'm missing Tyrion, and that's it. And then I'll have them all, and then have to start it all over again when this patch hits in a few days.
That was actually technically another semi-patch fix or bug fix from this patch, is that now in packs you'll be able to distinguish between a portrait and a Merc.
Yeah.
It's just for ease of visibility, I think. Doesn't actually I don't think any numbers change in terms of like your likelihood to get anything, but another thing that technically is coming with this patch.
It's a feels change, right? Like I think
it's all right.
Early on, some people expressed some annoyance with the fact that like they would, open it like a standard pack, and you'd see, oh, I'm getting this rare or this epic mercenary or something, and then I know some people who don't care about cosmetics as much and who don't have a full collection, they were just hoping it's like one of the ones they're missing, and then it's a skin for something they already have. And then it's just like, so I think that's just one little minor thing. So it's just like, so like, hey, this is actually a character versus skin, even though as we know by now, the skins are the characters. If you do buy a skin bundle for a character you don't own, you get to play with the mercenary. So it's effectively the same thing. But it's it's just worth pointing out because I do remember more people than I expected I saw bringing that up closer to launch. So I guess that makes sense why they're making a small little change like that. One other thing that's a little important thing to mention, we do know that even though they didn't mention directly in the patch notes about MMR issues, we did get some more confirmation today that they're looking into it. From what I understand, it sounds like how MMR and ranking and all that stuff is handled is not handled directly under the Mercenaries team. It's a different part of the Hearthstone organization there. So, but we did get confirmation from another Mercenaries developer that, obviously a 200-way tie for first at the end of the month isn't the ideal solution or the ideal, leaderboard ladder to have. So we did get some more confirmation on that's being looked into. And, when we got the initial change, it wasn't even something in a giant patch. It was, if I remember correctly, a very small patch that contained some like bug fixes and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if we do see this change, around the end of the month, a little bit later or early next month, because it wasn't specifically mentioned for this patch. But I think it's also something maybe they could even adjust server side where they don't need like a big patch, because I imagine a lot of the MMR stuff is handled on their end rather than in the client, but I don't know. But I just wanted to mention that because I know a lot of people, including myself, want to know what's going on with that, because we want, even though Mercenaries is new and there's no like super big incentive for finishing high on the ladder, it's still like a sense of accomplishment that, you found the meta breaker, you played really well, and right now, unfortunately, doesn't really represent that quite as much. So hopefully they can get a fix out, but just wanted to mention that so people know it is still they're aware of it. It's not something they're not aware of, so it's probably going to get fixed at some point.
So any kind of bringing us back to Wrathion, any final thoughts before I'm going to steal our next Merc, because I am, despite how cool all the other ones, I'm most hyped for this one.
Yeah,
I think we saved the best for last, honestly.
Yeah, no pun intended there with the cool, right? But no, Wrathion's just awesome, and I really like the design of punishing a Merc or an opponent for spamming the same ability over and over again.
Same.
That's more cool design that, like, honestly, all of these Mercs, especially the one we're about to get to, they just have really cool design for all these characters. So far, this is just, like, my favorite bunch we've gotten yet, because unlike before, where we got, like, one S-tier character a bunch, it feels like we have a lot more than that here. So, without further ado, let's check out the last one.
And just one more comment on that. It really feels like we've gotten a cool Merc and a good Merc in a lot of the drops, but they've never really been the same. Like Eudora, objectively the coolest Merc from our Pirates drop, where we all realized that Valera was actually the one who was, the best. So, especially as far as mechanics go. So, Lokholar the Ice Lord is our only non-fighter. He is a protector, he is an elemental, and he is a rare. So super pumped to pack him in my very first pack after the patch, and when I don't, I will complain on Twitter. So first ability is Hailstorm. It is a frost skill at 5 speed. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Repeat 5 times. Second skill is Frost Shock. It is a 9-speed frost ability, and it is deal 10 damage to an enemy. Their next ability gives them +5 frost weakness for that turn. Third skill is Snowball. It is a speed 7 cooldown 1 frost ability. Deal 10 damage. Damage increases by 5 each time another frost ability is cast. Resets after use. Very cool abilities here. Down on the equipment, we've got equipment 1 is Icy Focus. Hailstorm repeats 4 more times, bringing it up to 9. Frigid Winds. It is a passive equipment. After an enemy acts, gain +4 frost damage until the end of the turn. And then finally, third equipment, Shroud of the Ice Lord. passive, friendly elementals have plus 20 health. So, what? And that, just before I forget to say this, because I get lost in how cool this Merc is, solves the problem we were talking about earlier, where Grom can one-shot the elemental Balinda summons at the beginning of the game. So now we have yet another place Balinda can fit, because I don't already have 6 comps written down where I want to put her, right?
Yeah, that
zombies.
works, huh? I didn't
What do
think
you
about
think?
that at all.
You as our elemental guy, your fire expertise. What do you think?
So I was really happy to see this, especially after reading Belinda's stuff, because Frost is already a good comp. I mean, Frost Tyrion's one of the best comps in the game right now. I think it's pretty inarguable. And the fact that we're getting so much Frost support and elementals, like, I did not expect to get any elementals this patch, let alone...
I'm so hyped!
I know, let alone something that buffs all the elementals' HP. Like, this is insane for elementals. Like, if there's one thing I learned from the Ragnaros fire comp, is that between him with the HP equipment and Geddon, and I want to say I ran Cookie on that for some additional health too. Now imagine you have a start with Ragnaros with his extra HP, you have Baron Geddon, and you have Lokholar here, and you just plus 20 HP to all of that. You're starting the game with 3 units with over 100 health, probably some close to 110. That's insane. So
Yeah.
you can kind of leverage that because you're going to be slower, right? Fire's not a fast comp, but he gives you all this incentive to be slower and get payoff for it. And it's almost like a crime that we have to choose through these equipments here, and that we can only pick one, because
Right.
they're all so good. Like, and I think that's a theme with a lot of these Mercs. Like, I think most of them have at least 2 good equipments. Like, whereas before, I feel like with a lot of the base Mercs, there were a lot of just like one clear best equipment, and a lot of the times it was task 7. With these, it's like you got some options. There's some really interesting ways you can build it, and it makes me really hope that they add that there's a feature they mentioned long ago that I hope they still add eventually, where you can set your equipment per comp instead of just across all your comps.
That was like a weird, like, early promise that is supposed to still be coming.
Yeah, I feel like that'll probably be if we get like bigger quality of life stuff. I could see that being in there, but that's something I would definitely really like to see, because as we get more mercenaries and more ones designed like this, where it really seems incentivized to build around the items depending on how you want to use it. It would be great if we could just have multiple comps at the ready where you don't have to go in and swap the item before you go and play. Because I ran into that issue doing some roulette, where it's like you stay on the deck until you lose, and then you keep switching you stay on until you lose, and then you switch, and so on and so forth. But I had to go back and change the equipment because I was running like Big Stomp. So and other builds had the other equipment on Karen. But yeah, these, I mean, the one that really sticks out though, as much as I love elementals, Frigid Winds. That's like after an enemy acts, +4 frost damage until the end of next turn, or until the end of turn. That's like you could deal
Actually,
so much
messed
damage. And it rewards you for being slow. It rewards you for getting smashed in the face early by Valera.
Think just for a minute, like just run this back in your mind. The current Frost start is Jaina, Varden, and then either Lich King or Tyrion. We see a lot more Tyrion these days. So Grom, Valera, Thrall, one of the strongest comps in the meta right now. They are done with everything by speed 3, which means if you have this, Varden, who goes off at 5, is now getting to do so with +12 frost damage on his first ability, bringing his slow up to, I think, 18 damage. Like, just turn 1, 18 damage AoE, and oh, by the way, some extra slow for you.
And that's
not
just
that
one
we
Merc.
even want to put that on there. That's just one
That's
Merc.
just Varden.
And that's just Lokholar just being there. He hasn't done anything. He's just existing. And it's crazy. And the other thing I want to call out, because I got too excited about the abilities, so I skipped this. Max stats is 982. That is fairly bulky for a protector.
It is.
We've talked about our pre-cookie meta. You had 80 as a really important breakpoint for protectors, where you have some of the squishier protectors like Malfurion in the low to mid 70s. The highest protector currently is Lich King with 88, not counting Ragnaros and his equip. But that is bulky enough to survive a couple of swings.
For sure.
And with all of these fighters, leading casters is going to be pretty scary. So it would surprise me if, he's going down turn 1 with such a hefty amount of HP. So he is going to survive long enough to do something scary, because pretty much everything we're looking at on here is scary. It's just, what kind of scary would you like to be right now?
For real.
Yeah. Plus 12 frost damage is literally unbelievable. And the fact, literally one of my favorite parts about him is that you might not even have to play him with a single other frost merc, which yet again is another good design, that he doesn't have to go into the frost deck. He obviously does. You obviously jam him in there and he's great. But the fact that these mercs have other applications is amazing. And the wicked cool application that I'll mention is that for the elemental gangs out there, I think one of the sickest angles that Lokholar will have will be a bench merc that will have the friendly elementals have plus 20 health, and now all of a sudden you have a -1 speed 40-point heal on your elementals, because you can just, as soon as you board them in, they just insta heal for 20. As far as I understand it, that should work that way, and so now it's as if like you just suddenly blow people out with what they think your health is at.
That's
it's
clever.
Not start of game.
Yeah, it's not a battle cry. It's just whenever he's in there. And so now you have literally a like less than 0 speed heal just from boarding, just from making an action from your bench. You actually affect the stats that will immediately affect your opponent's initial actions. Like I love that part of it.
That's
but
clever.
already
going to lose
I'm starting to put him in benches, let alone frost openers.
I'm going to lose so much rank trying to get him pulled out with like a Brightwing or a Eudora bounce.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
That's a good idea.
When we finally get our Merc that lets you bounce them back to the bench and then choose who comes out next. Oh man.
It's Lokholar City. But no, I mean, it seems custom made, obviously, like for Valeera too, right? Like the fact that, I mean, this is one of the best possible answers to Valeera. Like it is literally basically exactly made to counter Valeera. So it seems it's a fighter. It's a protector. It destroys fighters. It attacks randomly and it punishes speed. It can attack Valeera under stealth with the hailstorm, and literally just again, Lokholar by himself will, in some cases, kill Valeera on turn 1. Like if you just high roll some of your frost little snowballs from the hailstorm, each one of those is going to be literally critting Valeera for 30 on turn 1.
Jeez.
You just have to roll 2 snowballs and she's just dead. 3 snowballs, she's just dead. And that's doing relevant damage to everybody else, and that's without even having a Varden, and that's without even having a Jaina. I really, really like this Merc, and am absolutely all over Frigid Winds for the equipment.
And you know what my favorite part is we've been talking about, okay, how do you counter speed control? What does that design look like? And Trick Room keeps coming up. The slowest mercs go first. It is like it does in Pokemon. This is now a speed control Punisher that is so creative in its implementation, because it's not just a direct, we're pulling numbers back and forth, okay, I'm going on 0, no, you're going on 6, no, you're, kind of like what we're doing now, where you're stacking Stomp with Varden, with Frostmourne, trying to get them under control. Just kill them. Just do more damage, right? Kind of like what we almost got with Sky Admiral, but just wasn't. She's just kind of not enough to really make that impact. Now we have that.
Yeah.
And a protector, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah. The typing is one of the most important parts when Valeera is your nasty speed animal here. That I mean, it's very perfect.
And I mean, it's good for elementals, right? I mean, you have Rag and Geddon as like the 2 premier elementals in the format, and this just goes really well with them. It feels like.
And so does Balinda.
Yeah,
Balinda.
and it's gonna be tricky figuring out, what's the best way to combo those for lead versus bench. But like, I definitely agree the design with Frigid Winds, along with some of the other abilities on the other mercs, as well as Lokholar, it's exactly the kind of thing I wanted to see in terms of like an interesting way to punish the opponent for always going first or always being faster than you. Hailstorm, like just the fact that we get a frost scaling passive here on an ability that is so obviously made to go with frost scaling is just so insane. I mean, like, it's Mullahoo said, it's what, like, you're critting for 30 damage every hit with that +4 or +12 frost damage for every hit. And you get 5 hits. It's just like, that's insane. And that's without, like, imagine you lead with the Jaina and you already have +3 frost damage, +6 frost damage. And it just keeps, or get this, maybe you get a little more creative with it and you run one of those weird Varden builds where every time you get a freeze, he gets frost damage and you stack even more frost damage, because they're so rare, but when you run into those builds, they can destroy you unexpectedly. Like, I saw one again on ladder the other day and I got absolutely like owned by it. It was just
And you know what's
ridiculous.
great about this is that we have a full frost merc without a single freeze ability. And I love that because it's so easy to look at frost and say, okay, freeze, right? That's the frost gimmick. No, it does not have to be, and I think this is a really good way, just the entire design from how we're countering speed control to the archetypes we're kind of breaking with how Frost works and what we're expecting from spell schools. I love all of it, and if anything, it just makes me even more excited to see what else is in the Mercs team's back pocket. Like, how do you top this? I cannot wait to find out, because we all know they will. The drops have gotten better and better over time, so the next one is going to blow my brain out of my ears.
It's crazy. Like, that's one thing I think, at least for me, this drop definitely renewed a lot of faith in. The last 2 drops, we've gotten some cool mercenaries, like, and really strong ones too. But I feel like we were getting a pattern of one S tier merc, one just absolutely dumpster tier, and then the other 2 in between. Kind of cool, have some kind of cool abilities, but they don't really slot into anything that was super meta at the time, and felt a little awkward. And obviously, people have to grind those up. And as we know, it's harder to grind those new characters compared to a lot of the ones you already have, because you can't focus those coins unless you're doing like dedicated farming. But with this bunch, not only are we getting more mercenaries, it's 5 this time, but we're getting more playable PvP mercenaries. I feel like some of the other ones with pirates, there were some cool designs, but especially ones like Scabs, they felt like a little bit more like PvE fodder. Like, there's probably some cool stuff you can do with him in PvE, but he just doesn't really feel like he gets there in PvP with the kind of stuff he's trying to do and the other pirates available. But in this drop, I honestly would not be surprised if pretty much every merc here ended up seeing a fair amount of play in one comp or another. It's like, so this has me, and just, I also really like that pretty much for all of them, they have interesting abilities that really make you think about how you want to build the comp. I feel like some of the launch mercenaries are kind of 1-button or 2-button warriors, where it's like, have either of you ever even used the 3rd Antonidas skill? Do you even know what it does? I don't. I know it deals damage.
Who is that? I've never played him.
Exactly.
Level
Probably 90% of people playing PvP have probably never played Antonidas, right?
Yeah, outside of like the first week.
Because he's just a fireball machine. That's what he does. And that's great in PvE, less so in PvP. But even, good mercs like Valera, who are, 1-button spam units, even though she has great abilities, I just think it's nice that we have, like, a lot of good options on these characters, so it feels like there's more depth in the team building process and the decision making that you have in the game. Like Mercs is a ton of decision making, so giving us a little bit more to think about there with like combos and stuff is always interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this has been such a departure from the last year. Like already in just these 1 or 2 or 3 releases, like just the complexity of each of the Mercs. Like this seems like the most complex batch of Mercs yet by like an enormous margin. Like when you look at Sneed, that's what I was just trying to go and look at Sneed, right? Like if you just look at his kit, and he's an epic, right? And again, this is kind of things like Sinestra and stuff showing that rarity basically means nothing, like literally almost nothing. It's not even like, again, like in Magic and stuff where like rarity ties to like inherent design complexity, but now that does not seem like the case. But like when you look at
in
Sneed,
standard,
right. But when you look at Sneed, it's just like all of basically his entire kit has like one fewer line of text on every single ability and every single equipment, and then he has pirate requirements. Like these Mercs are instead saying, no. If you have stuff, we're even better. It's not a requirement. It's a feature, not a bug. And then also combines with all these other things, and then also has aggressively costed speeds, and then also has good equipment, and just it is such a vast jump, I would say, in like literally just between last drop and this drop. It is interesting. I wonder how much of that means that they are kind of being pulled from this pool of Mercs, right, that they have ready to go that are across a huge spectrum of kind of just design. But I mean, this is the Alterac Valley expansion. They kind of knew that a lot of these were coming. It's kind of hard pressed to do it, but the dragons didn't have to be here. So I don't know. It's definitely, I love more complexity like this. When the game is already as hard as it is, like Mercs that aren't complex, either like you said, zombies have to be these insanely overtuned single button machines, which aren't really that fun. Like they're cool to have every now and then, but like otherwise, if you're not really good at having one button, you're just not playable. And I would rather have everything be crazy and doing crazy stuff than unplayable Mercs like Sneed.
Yeah, super agree with that point. It's like the Incredibles quote. When everyone's super, no one is. If everything's overpowered, nothing's overpowered, right? Because it all keeps itself in balance. It's the old Modern Warfare 2 philosophy from 10 years ago.
And I love it, and you love to see it. I think it is really great to move from a meta where you can easily lose on a 0-speed coin flip to getting 5 Mercs that just by reading them, I'm like, wow, these seem really skill intensive. Like I can guarantee I'm going to be just like head in hands on day one trying to figure out what the play is. And that's not a thing I've felt in at least a month, at least since Valera's been out. Not that everything's super straightforward, but comparatively, right?
Yeah.
I'm nothing but pumped.
Yeah, no, this really reinvigorated a lot of my my hype for Mercenaries, because as you all know, I like trying a lot of weird, strange team comps just for the fun of it.
Oh yeah,
and this is going to enable a lot of those.
You're not going to have enough. You're not going to have enough days between the next Mercs to finish all your videos at this point.
Between the grinding and everything, it's gonna be a lot. But I think it's just, like you said, just such a significant increase in terms of complexity and power level compared to some of the other Mercs we got before, where it honestly, I really hope maybe eventually, even though it's a little dangerous, I'd like if we could get a kind of revisiting of maybe some of the pirates and stuff, maybe buff them up a little bit, make them a little bit more viable, because I really, really wanted to see Edwin shine, and I feel like Valera ended up doing what I thought Edwin was going to do 10 times better.
Definitely.
And just without requiring tribal support at all. So
Which again makes the like fighters that, like, that's another problem with running like legendary fighter into legendary fighter. Like we just completely spewed a legendary position just by immediately printing another Merc that basically did the exact same thing but better in the immediate drop afterwards. Like yet another reason why you should just cycle between the legendaries. Like thankfully Balinda is very different, but you're totally right. I would love to see the pirates get buffed up like that.
And it's worth noting, they're taking a lot of like kind of different directions with fighters with this. If we know, like, most fighters were really not about a lot of what's being done here. Like healing fighters outside of Anaconda, not really thinking of a whole lot of healing fighters. And even her, it's a little bit more conditional with, or at least if you want to use it to like max effect. And then we got frost support and fire support from a fighter. That's like, there's just so much versatility there. It's really, I think, maybe the reason why they picked so many fighters is I think fighters were one of the comps that was lacking a little bit. Like fighters have great options, but I don't think they have a ton of variety in what their options do, which is why we mainly see Valera, we mainly see Diablo, sometimes Samuro. But other than that, and Tyrion now more because of Tyrion Frost, but other than that, really hard-pressed to think of fighters that see a ton of play, because, you know, the best ones do kind of the best things. Why play the other ones? So I think a lot of these give us a little bit more reason to try other strategies where it's not about just speed and damage to kill your opponent as fast as possible.
Indian Sky Admiral is actually kind of doing a similar thing for casters, where it was like, when you look at the casters, I think they oddly also suffer from a similar problem, and so I wouldn't be surprised if actually the next wave of Mercs probably has a ton of casters in it, in the way that they've been neglected in these last sets. But yeah, when you look at it, a lot of the casters are just also like shoot laser. And then you have people like Sky Admiral, where now you have casters that are attacking. That's a huge difference. Now all of a sudden you have Balinda, that's a fighter that's never attacking. She's just casting spells. Definitely setting a precedent to let them kind of do whatever they want with typing, which at the end of the day I think is good.
Same, yeah.
It's interesting, actually, though, because, you know, I was thinking, we haven't seen any casters. They've got to be lagging behind. But before this drop, so as Mercs stands today, there is 20 of each role. So exactly 60. This, for the first time, I think, I was trying to count backwards and failing miserably, puts fighters in the lead of the most Mercs. We definitely started with the most casters at launch. Things sort of evened out, and now fighters are, you know, far and away ahead. So excited to see some maybe green dragonflight, blue dragonflight casters coming out. Maybe more dragons. I always want more dragons.
I mean, Dragonflight next expansion definitely kind of makes sense. Definitely kind of checks out, especially as they set us up, like you said, with Wrathion, which I forgot. Yeah, as the son of Deathwing or whatever, right? And then Sinestra. I mean, definitely setting that up. So I could see that, and casters, dragons are definitely casters slated.
And it's probably going to be themed, right, around whatever the mini set is, like how we got pirates with the last mini set, because next drop will be next month when I imagine the mini set's coming out, if we're getting, you know, regular rotation and a new set in April like we normally do. I think it's April usually rotation happens. So February is kind of that halfway point since we had an expansion in December. So that's something to look forward to. I think you guys are right. I think there's going to be more casters in the next bunch. I almost think this big wave of fighters is kind of maybe a delayed response to the pure dominance of casters at the start of Mercenaries. And maybe they wanted to put out pirates first because they wanted to, you know, be on that theme for the mini set and stuff. Pirates were hot. And now they can be like, all right, we have, you know, nothing directly to tie this in with this month, so we can have a little more freedom in what we're throwing in here, so we get some dragons. But I'd be super excited if we got more dragons next month. I know one of the old data mines, I think, had Malagos as a blue, so maybe he's one we can look forward to. But as we know with those old data mines, not all of that stuff is accurate. Like the information for Valera was wrong on a fair amount of stuff, so gotta always take that stuff with a grain of salt.
And we another one of the data mines that we haven't seen yet is Medivh, who is also a caster. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see an arcane and beast support, by the way, if the data mine is correct. We won't go into that too much right now because we're already going long. But I think it's safe to say that this is going to be an awesome year for Mercs.
Yeah. This first, I think they're starting off the year strong with these new additions compared to past stuff that they've done. You know, really hope we get a Kazakus eventually, and if we do, he better have
Spicy.
a dragon transformation. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Gotta stay true to the lore.
Pretty cool.
Kazakus is
It's
a dragon
maybe like-
in lore?
So, quick little lore explanation. So, back when the first set, Mean Streets, was coming out, there was all this stuff that was hinting at Kazakus being a dragon, and they had all this stuff, and apparently it was actually something that was designed to be that way, but it was one of the designs that got changed towards the end before release, so they didn't actually have that in, but it was kind of alluded at and memed about a little bit, and then I think like recently in the last year or two, someone asked them about it, and I think it might have even came up, remember in the Mercenaries trailer?
Yeah.
Where Kazakus is there, and then, I don't know if that was it, but they at some point, I'm like 95% sure Blizzard confirmed Kazakus can transform into a dragon.
Okay, well, I hate to
no.
prove you wrong on the podcast, but I'm reading Kazakus's the original Kazakus from Mean Street of Gadgetzan's flavor text, and it reads, quote, "The mysterious leader of the Cabal is not a dragon and does not deal in illegal potions. Any public statements to the contrary will be met with litigation and dragonfire potions." I think that really puts that to rest for good.
Yeah.
Easy, yeah. I
as
guess
good
I'll
as
have
it
to
can
lawyer up because I'm going to get sued by
Yeah.
Kazakus now for the libel and slander. But
Team up
yeah,
with
that's
Pokey.
fun fact about Kazakus for anyone who didn't know. I think
No, it was definitely a Mercenaries time with the what was either the release videos or the trailers and stuff like that, or even I think even like in the dialogue in the quest chain for Mercenaries, it alludes to like dragon stuff being like Katrana Prester and Kazakus are like in league somehow. Which again, Katrana is also Deathwingy related, I think. Well, I mean Onyxia and then so on.
Onyxia,
So I think you're probably right. And that, I mean, talk about if Kazakus just has like a potion equipment, a dragon equipment, and a golem equipment. Like those are his 3 different specs and the 3 different ways to build them.
that would be
pretty
very,
sweet.
very cool. Yeah,
Stop it. I cannot have all this hype.
There's too much exciting stuff we're thinking of now because of just these designs. Like, just transformation alone opens up so many possibilities. Like, imagine down the road, maybe, like you brought this up last time, Mullahoo, with the PvE stuff. Imagine a Merc that can transform types. Like, not just... We just saw transform... what's it?
Like
Tribe.
minion type or whatever.
So,
but,
like... It's really... And we know transforming type is programmed into the game from PvE. Now, would that be a balanced mechanic? I don't know. But it would be a really interesting thing to have a Merc where you could, maybe when you change types, it is like a full-on all abilities change or something like that. Just because obviously it's more drastic than just changing one skill. You know, you're changing what you're good against, what you're bad against. But that's just so many cool things. And this definitely makes me feel like, you know, we're gonna see designs like that because these designs are awesome and ridiculous. But we could talk about that all day for sure. We do want to start wrapping things up here, though. We do have a little bit of other stuff to mention, though. I think, firstly, definitely worth talking a little bit about the tournament coming up this weekend. HSReplay actually just dropped their new Mercenaries features. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Really cool stuff, awesome data. Definitely worth checking out. And they also have that cool collection manager, which is totally free to use with Deck Tracker. So if you want a convenient way of tracking your progress in Mercs, that's super cool. But to kind of celebrate that launch, they are sponsoring a big Mercenaries tournament this weekend. And it's actually being hosted and casted by our very own Mullahoo. So you want to tell us some more about that?
Yeah, we now officially know that we're being joined by Dragon Rider as our official co-host, which is also super exciting. She was on the casting table with me for also Run with Pasca with No Pros here, who are also cooperating with for this tournament. We ran the world's first Mercenaries tournament. It was a super blast. That video popped off. It's still up there. It's a really cool piece of history in that way to go and look at, which is sweet. But yeah, this January 22nd at 12 p.m. EST. It's like something goofy like 8 a.m. GMT or 10 a.m. GMT or something like that. Super cool format. You can also register now. It's free. It's an open $500 to first place with scaling prizes that go down below that. And you don't have to sign up for your Mercs. You can save your lineup until right before the tournament. So sign up now. Signups are already going. I think we're over 36 players now. It's now officially the biggest Mercenaries tournament.
As of this recording, 41
Ooh,
players
hell
are signed
yeah.
up.
Oh my God, this tournament's going to be
So,
so long.
Easily the biggest tournament.
Easily.
And what's important is don't look at that number and think, well, I'll never get high enough to get a prize, because the top 16 are going to get prizes. Just by getting in top 16, you can get 1 month of HSReplay and try out these new features for yourself.
Yeah, I literally, even just by Mercenaries, like, right, it wasn't really like an incentive to keep it in that same way if you were just playing standard and you already had Hearthstone Replay or whatever. But like now, if you're only playing Mercenaries, or you didn't have a reason. But I mean, these stats that they give you are, like, again, we got to see kind of some sneak peeks and stuff of them. We're going to be highlighting more of them on stream when it happens, and we're going to be talking about a lot of that. It's really, really cool stuff. Like, I don't even really spend a ton of time looking at like stats outside of the game for like standard and battlegrounds and things like that. But with Mercenaries, it's really nice to be able to just to look at comps, just to have a place that you can go and look at what the heck is this comp, and then right below it, another visual description of another comp. Like, that in itself is worth it. And so even if just playing this tournament will ignite a little fire, give you some stats, and you'll perform better in the next one. Keep in mind as well, really heavily rewarding players that have a great collection, because the format is last Mercenary standing, just like last hero standing in standard. You basically have to open with a lineup of 6, your regular comp. As soon as you lose, you now have to sub out 4 Mercs from that lineup. Keep 2 of them, sub out 4. You just go into your collection. You can use whatever Merc you want, whatever you can tailor to beat the lineup that your opponent just beat you with, and then get ready to be beat by whatever their lineup is, or prepare for it, because as soon as you're dead, you're dead. Single elimination. So it's going to be an awesome, awesome tournament. 12 p.m. on Saturday. EU can watch it. NA can watch it. It's going to be awesome. So at least swing by. It's going to be on my channel, so twitch.tv/Mullahoo. Again, run by Hearthstone Replay, Pasca. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited. If you don't know, both Tangster and myself will be playing in this event.
Oh, it's going to be fun to cast you guys. 100% you guys are going to get on camera. Because it's the finals. Fighting Pit podcast finals.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, we gotta both make it to the finals, and we can have a little Yugi versus Joey anime showdown for the trophy.
Zombies, this actually brings me to the outro question you asked me to come up with, and so in specific detail, as deep as you want to go, please explain to me your 6 starting Mercs and your entire strategy for the tournament. Go. Don't think, just say it.
That's putting me on the spot, right? Yeah.
No, I'm joking. That's not the actual question. I'm just fishing for those good details. I think that's actually all we have on the tournament. I was trying to think. I thought I had one more point, but it left me entirely. So
be there, watch it, play in it, or if you can't, watch it. Anything you can do to help support
the early Mercenaries There's no downside.
Scene. I think it's great, and this is how you get more big events like this, because Mercs is young. It's been around like 3 months, and we already have like a big tournament for it. Pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. We have to impress our Microsoft overlords, okay?
Yeah.
This is the way. This is the way. Get
this
some Xbox. I'm going to put an Xbox back up there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, honestly, on a brief aside, that is something that I have not heard many people talking enough about in terms of like Microsoft's acquisition of Blizzard Activision.
Really?
Like, no, just not of the actual acquisition, but of the fact that like this is an amazing opportunity for them to just throw money at Hearthstone esports and let it run. And probably the best opportunity we've ever had, considering the mediocre support from Blizzard Activision in general, I would say, as like a general esport. So this is going to be some pretty potentially nice news.
That's true. And obviously, these big corporate deals do take a long time to go through with, but I think we're going to see some very positive changes there, hopefully in the long term. Also, positive stuff for the team, as it sounds like good old Bobby is getting the boot eventually. once everything, all the ink is dried, he gets his little golden parachute of a couple $100 million or something and is on his merry way. And as unfortunate as that is, at least he won't be, saying all this awful stuff about the
At least
devs
he won't
anymore
be
and messing everything
here.
up. I think it's a big wave of relief for a lot of people knowing like the days are numbered where he is in control. So it was a lot of really exciting stuff there.
Thank Yogg for that.
Yeah, thank Yogg indeed. Well, we're gonna get to our end question here in just a sec, but you got me thinking, Tangster, when we were talking about rarity before, and there's one aspect of rarity that I think really does matter that people undercount, and it's that we don't get these awesome diamond portraits for non-legendaries, and it is a crime. Because some of these would be so cool.
The one reason to make sure that the good ones are legendary.
Yeah.
Zombies, you're actually missing the most important point of the rarities. It's that the next Pauper tournament is going to be lit.
Lokholar.
Okay.
True.
So
yeah, we got more.
one legendary and everything else is Pauper legal. Let's go Fighting Pit Pauper 2.0.
Yeah. Oh god, some of these would be disgusting.
Varden Lokholar. Varden was already the winning lineup. Lokholar going straight into that.
Disgusting.
Yeah, no, because these, as we talked about, they have a variety of good items. Task 7's banned. Who cares?
That doesn't matter. I can't even tell. Well, and none of them have Task 7, right? Because you're unlocking from heroics.
Yeah, so it'd just be their third
Oh,
item.
does
I
that
guess.
change the? I was going to say, does that change the Pauper ruling now?
I'm gonna have to.
We'll
I'm
have
gonna
to think
have to
about
figure
that.
it out. We're gonna have to rough it out because it's way less clear cut.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But
It's a
there's a
talk
whole
for another time.
other podcast. Yeah.
But so to end this week, I thought this would be kind of interesting. A little bit of a two-parter. One, who is either you think going to be the best or just your favorite Merc of the new bunch, and two, just general quick TLDR on how you feel about like the constructed changes we're getting with the patch. I guess I'll start us off. So it's tough. It's really hard, off of the dragon transformation alone, I want to pick Wrathion because I just think that's so freaking cool. But I think Paladina might be my favorite of the bunch just because she enables like everything I want to try. Like fire, she enables frost, elemental synergy, she's a human. Like there's just so much I can do with that. So, and I really like that we're getting another character like Mullahoo that has those initial summon spawns. I think that's a really interesting design and something I want to see more of. So I'm glad we're getting more of it. And for card changes, generally pretty happy with everything. Could have seen the pirate get a little hit harder for Wild or banned in Wild, but I think it's going to be everything else that has changed is going to change things so much. I'm just more than happy. And I think for standard, relatively like safe and expected changes. Not going to delete Rogue, but I think it's definitely going to take it down from that tier S pedestal. And I look forward to seeing, what decks are able to kind of survive and thrive now that, we have an extra turn or two before some of these ridiculous cards start coming down. So you want to go next, Mullahoo?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I'm gonna pick Lokholar. I think that's the one that I'm most excited from. Just application. I love that he can be. I love that he's a spell type Merc that actually just has enough support within his own kit. I think there's a bunch of really cool spots where he can come off of the bench and do some cool stuff, just like as an anti-fighter thing. As a like, oh, okay, you are playing Valeera, I'll bring him in. It might not be good enough, but again, off the bench when you got your Balinda comboing in there. So I definitely am really excited to be, especially because I'm not the Valeera player. I want to try to see if I can continue to not be the Valeera player and then attack it from other ways. Because I mean, if anything, that just gives me hope, right? Like when I can actually throw down against Valeera, it makes me less tilted about her being the way that she is. So if we get even more tools, then everything evens out. That's great. So I'm probably going to work on being some anti-Valeera technology, and I'm definitely voting for Lokholar for that specific reason.
Nice.
And then for the constructed changes, I don't really know anything about Wild and stuff. Battlegrounds is also super sick. I'm very stoked to have all the battle buddies and stuff. Like that's going to be bananas. But I mean, probably just change the game entirely. Like now every Merc is now just, or every hero is now just fun in Battlegrounds, which is amazing. And then for standard, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they hit null twice. to go up to 6 mana and to a 3/5. I mean, it makes sense. The precedent for free minions is just like so ludicrously broken that like it's probably better to do that. And I wish that Cloak of Shadows was either just deleted or brought up to like 5 or 6 mana. The fact that you can still go cloak scabs on 5, 6, 7, 8 is obviously again not as good. Like being able to start that chain for 5, 6, 7 was ludicrous. So an extra whole turn to kill them will hopefully be enough. But yeah, I'm excited. But most of my time will probably be spent grinding up a lot of these mercs instead because I'm more excited about those. But I'll definitely be dabbling back in standard for a little bit because it was a fun format in my opinion before everyone just started playing rogue. So if people will stop playing rogue and just have a normal format again, then I think it's going to be a great format.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the VS report the other day, I think this might have been a first of all time. I'm not positive, but Rogue at top 1000 legend was over 50% of the metagame. Just total decks. And I mean, I've seen some disgusting things in my day. I don't think I've ever seen it that bad on a VS report. Like the only other deck that you could even like see the graph of was Druid. Like it was bad. It was really bad. So hopefully those changes will help with that. What about you, Tangster? What do you think?
Yeah, as your resident Vicious Syndicate shill, I can let you know that is, I believe, one of 3 times that's happened. The other one being day 1 Demon Hunter
and Galvangar Shaman.
I don't remember the third.
That's
but
all right.
That one maybe
it was emergency.
That one
changes,
got hit pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, my favorite new Merc is going to be Lokholar. Totally agree with Mullahoo on the why, just the flexibility, the ability to run elementals, and the fact that I'm going to run the Fire Lord and the Ice Lord right next to each other. It's going to be lit.
Can't wait.
I also really like the thing that you said, Mullahoo, that you haven't leveled Valera, but because you waited, you're going to be fine because now you got game against Valera. So it's proof that simply missing an entire drop of mercs, if you're taking a break from the game, is not going to be backbreaking. You're not going to come back with hugely behind everybody else. And so I'd love to see that. As far as the other changes go, again, Resident Duels main, super excited for our multi-class heroes. Because Diablo, I hated playing Diablo. And so now having Galvangar and Balinda as our heroes where they can choose what class they are based on the item they choose. Super cool design, super pumped to play with that, and yeah, I'm going to be burning some hours in Battlegrounds. I don't know where I'm going to get all the time to play these modes, you guys.
Right.
And
thank God we have a training grounds so we can make up some experience. Finally.
That helps out a lot for sure. Yeah, no, there's just right now pretty much the majority of game modes in Hearthstone are all getting awesome stuff. I mean, heck, we're
about to be fixed.
We're even getting like a themed tavern brawl or something. That sounds kind of cool. Like there's just really they're doing a lot for a lot of different modes with this patch, and really happy to see it. Because no matter what the reason you play Hearthstone is, there's probably something for you, and that's always great to see. That is going to wrap it up for us this time. Before we sign off here, where can we find you guys? You're on the internet.
Well, you'll find me Saturday at twitch.tv/Mullahoo casting this 666 Mercenaries tournament. Otherwise, we're on Twitter. We got denied for our verification on Twitter. Feels bad, man. But I think I clicked the buttons wrong. So we're going to try again soon. But I have to wait a while. But apparently I qualify, which is pretty cool. Thanks to esports, probably, as a journalism man.
Oh, neat.
We'll see if I become a real boy soon.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I'll root for you or vote because that's definitely a democratic process. You can find me on Mullahoo's stream in the finals after an undefeated run, or more likely at Tangster 1922 on Twitter, and the face behind the at Fighting Pit podcast account at Fighting Pit, or on literally any Mercenaries Discord that exists.
Yeah, Merc's Discords are great. Definitely recommend checking some of those out if you're looking for some more people to talk about the mode with. I know we hang out in there a fair amount of the time, even if it's just some lurking while I'm doing some editing, but it's always fun hanging out and talking to people in there. I saw people discussing the Mercs today, and for the one of the pictures they posted was like a screen grab of my video because you could see like part of the webcam thing there. I was like, that's so weird to me. Like, it's so kind of surreal that someone's actually like taking this thing, like all these people actually watch this. But it's awesome. Love the Mercenaries community. Everyone's been very supportive, and I think, you know, obviously not all the changes we want are going to come in one magic patch that fixes everything, but I think we're going in a good direction. And I think we're going to cross our fingers and hope that the extra coin stuff is the big mysterious thing for 22.4. But we have a lot of stuff to enjoy between now and then. If you want to see more Mercenaries content, I do post daily here on YouTube. And obviously, podcasts can be on all our traditional platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, RSS feed, so on and so forth. But yeah, that's going to do it for episode 7 of The Fighting Pit. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time. Peace.
Bye.
Stay safe.